Pumice rafting is a phenomenon that we've only recently discovered, and it transports basically all of the organisms of the reef to the coast of Australia and the Pacific Islands in the area. Pumice is the stone that we all know and love as a foot exfoliation product that we get in Coles and Woolworths, but it's actually produced by the eruption of submarine or underwater volcanoes. Because of the explosive nature of the way it's produced, it's full of air bubbles, and the bubbles allow it to float along the surface of the ocean. My research is focusing on the biodiversity that is transported on the surface of the individual pumice stones. I'm looking at a really old theory in ecology, the theory of island biogeography, and this theory predicts that the larger the habitat, the more species that will exist within that habitat. The raft that I'm studying actually erupted all at once within 12 hours on the 12th of July 2012 approximately, and around 4 trillion pieces of pumice were produced on this one occasion. So I collected samples throughout the east coast of Australia, and also was sent samples by people who were just in love with the phenomenon as much as me. And I analysed them for what organisms were coming and were there any invasive or pest species that were arriving, and were there also beneficial and restorative species which are coming to our shores via this phenomenon. The species area curve that I've been testing mathematically by studying this biodiversity has been supported by pumice rafting, in that larger pieces of pumice do have more species. But from a more practical and management perspective, we are getting the restorative species such as corals and bryozoans and things that build reefs coming back into damaged ecosystems like the Great Barrier Reef. While at the same time there are some invasive species also coming. So hopefully knowing more about this phenomenon will aid managers in the future to understand the processes driving shallow marine biodiversity in the Pacific Ocean and Australia. The thing that excites me greatly about this project, I think, is just the sheer volume of biodiversity and marine animals and plants that are being transported by this little known phenomenon. How could we go so long without realising that this was really occurring? There were a couple of papers published in the 80s, but very little research has been done. There's almost nothing done on it. So I think knowing more about our oceans and understanding the forces which drive their beauty and their productivity is really important for both now and in the future for the humankind, really.